Hey everybody, I'm Tyler with MORRFlate Snail Trail 4x4 NorCal 4x4 Rescue, and we're here today with John Arenz from Rubicon Trail Foundation to talk with you guys about snow wheeling and some things you can do for your vehicle to make snow wheeling more successful. We've got a bunch of other videos when it comes to this snow wheeling series up here on the Rubicon. So if you guys want to know more about recovery equipment, camping equipment, communications options, clothing stuff, go check out some of the other videos in the series over at Rubicon Trail Foundation's YouTube page. But this video here is all about things we can do for our vehicle to have better success in the snow. So let's start off with our first thing I think that anybody thinks about when it comes to snow wheeling is tires.
Let's talk about tires.
Tires here. John, what are you running here on your rig?
These are 42-inch IROCs. And
I think technically they're 4150s, John.
I think technically they're 4150s.
42s,
yeah, they actually
right.
do say 41.5 right on them. 41.5 right on them. It's silly. These are 41.5-inch IROCs.
Yep.
They're mounted on 10-inch wheels to make them wider. They're, if you'll notice, they're brand new.
They look brand new still. They got some nice cut ridges here on the lugs. You've still got the little rubbers on the sidewalls there.
Still got siping.
Still got a lot of siping on them. You still got a ton of tread there on there.
These are about 4 years old, and the only time I put them on my rig is for snow wheeling. I never run them on the street, and I never run them on the rocks. And the reason I do that is to keep the lugs deep, not have them worn off,
okay,
and to keep the edges of the tread blocks sharp. And if you feel that tread block, it actually is undercut like a little scoop. It is
undercut, yeah.
But that doesn't exist on an IROC that's been run on the rocks. So I have a separate set of tires, and not everybody does, but I think that's important. And these this year are going to get retired to dirt, and a new set's coming on for next year.
That's cool. That's a really smart thing. I never realized that these are undercut like that. I know that they're directional.
They're like a little paddle.
That makes a lot of sense. There's a couple of features there that you mentioned about the IROCs that I think can be applied to a lot of different tires out there that really help make snow wheeling more successful. One was width.
Yep.
You talked about width. Why does width matter when it comes to tires in the snow?
So width matters for a couple of reasons. One is the amount of tread you're putting on the snow and the amount of bite, but more important than that is PSI, pounds per square inch, how much tread face is actually sitting on the snow in square inches versus how much your vehicle weighs. The lower the PSI, the better it stays on top of the snow and the less it sinks in.
So that's different than your PSI in your tires, your air pressure in your tires. That's more of what I think would be considered ground pressure, right?
It's absolutely ground pressure.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really neat. If you think about, I did the math recently on snow tracks versus tires, and your contact patch for a tire can get really big when you're aired down. I mean, you're aired down right now, and you've got from 50% more contact patch now, if not more.
At least, yeah.
And when you do the math on that, it really decreases the weight of the weight of your vehicle on the terrain.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, in pounds per square inch. It's a pretty cool thing that a lot of people don't realize that's what's going on. So a wider tire, the more you can air down and kind of balloon out your tire to get a bigger contact patch, the more success you're going to have in the snow.
A wide tire, a big tire because that makes it longer, and a tire that has a sidewall that will bulge easily, not a rigid sidewall.
A rigid sidewall. That's a really good point too. There's some great tires out there that are amazing at Baja and going fast in the desert and taking a lot of abuse.
But they're not good for snow wheeling.
But they're not good in snow wheeling because you can't get this nice balloon action that we're seeing from these IROCs here.
Yep.
Cool. That's a really good feature. Another feature we kind of talked a little bit about is this voids here in between your tire lugs. Do we want to have these big voids, or do we want something that's tighter together?
So it depends on what you're driving on.
Okay.
If you're driving on snow or mud or sand, you want big voids. If you're driving on ice, you want tiny voids.
Gotcha.
Also known as siping. And if you look close at this tire, you can see that on top of each lug, there's some siping that helps you have a good grip on ice. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, yeah. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are you want to have a really skinny pizza cutter style tire so you can get through the snow down to your pavement. And whereas a lot of, I think if you look around us right now, we're in 10 feet of snow right now.
That's a lot of pizza cutter.
That's a lot of pizza cutter to get down to. So having a nice wide tire with a big voids really helps you gain traction and flotation.
Agreed.
In 10 feet of snow that we get up here on the Rubicon, right?
That's right. And if you're going to travel in the snow on the Rubicon, the only way to do it, or in any mountainous area with a lot of snow, is to stay on top.
Gotcha.
Philosophically, if you try and go to the hard stuff in the bottom, you're never going to get there.
That's a very good point. So moving on from there, I know that airing down is the best thing you can do in order to make that tire bigger, your contact patch bigger. What's really a goal to air down to? What's a good PSI air pressure to get down to in your tires?
So I think that depends on what kind of snow you're wheeling in a lot. If you're in spring snow where there's lots of rocks showing, you don't want to go down too far because now you're going to tear your tires up on the rocks. Your sidewalls get vulnerable. But if you're in this kind of snow where we're talking about 10 feet of snow where your tire's never going to see a rock, I literally take the valve stems out till the tire's almost completely flat, and I have maybe 4 inches of distance between the bottom of the wheel and the snow. And that creates the biggest contact patch, and that works the best. It's about 1.5 pounds of air.
Yeah. How do you go down that low? Because I know if you go down that low, you're running a high risk of having a bead pop off of your tire bead pop off of your wheel.
Of course, you're asking about beadlocks.
I am.
So all wheels are made with a shoulder that the bead, the edge of the tire, sits on. On a typical vehicle, we rely on the bead being the exact size or maybe a little bit smaller than the rubber, and the inflation of the tire popping it on there and staying there. When we run this little tire pressure on the back bead, the shoulder's very wide and the tire wants to stay there on the back bead. On the front bead, it's very small and it will pop right off. So this ring is called a beadlock, and the beadlock bolts onto the outside of the tire in place of that shoulder and crimps the tire between the wheel and the beadlock ring. And that enables you to run super low tire pressure, the kind of tire pressures we're talking about being effective out here.
Gotcha. Without having to worry about blow your bead off all the time.
Without worrying about the beads coming off.
Nice.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of my snow wheeling, and so I'm a huge proponent. Anybody who goes out snow wheeling loves winter recreation. Beadlocks are almost a must, in my opinion.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. They make life so much easier when you're out in the snow to be able to create these massive contact patches.
Agreed.
One tip that I thought was really clever that you do is you have a blue dot here. What is this blue dot here for on your beadlock ring?
So all my beadlock rings have blue dots on them, and anybody who's ever snow wheeled has wanted to change their tire pressure once they were already on the trail.
Yep.
And the inside of your tire will fill up with snow. Once it's filled up, you can't find your valve stem. You got to empty the entire well of the wheel to find your valve stem. The blue dot marks the valve stem. One handful of snow and you found it, and you're off to the races.
That was a really cool tip. John's tips and tricks, everybody. Helps you find your valve stem. Just put a little dot on the outside of your ring. You know exactly where it is. That's cool. So moving from there, was there anything else about tires, beadlocks that we can talk about for snow wheeling?
I think that covers it, don't you?
I did too. I think that's a good job. Let's move kind of in and our way up the vehicle here. Inside our differential, we have a device in there that locks together our tires or our wheels. Explain what this is and why it's beneficial to have for snow wheeling.
So a typical vehicle that drives down the road, passenger vehicle, has a differential, and it's called a differential because it allows one tire to travel at a different speed than the other. That's super important because when you're going around corners, one would skid if you didn't have that. It would cause loss of control and damage to mechanical equipment and worn tires and all kind of hard on the road, the whole thing. This obviously has a differential and will run like that. It also has a selectable locker, which means I have a switch on the inside of the vehicle that I can make the locker go on and off, and it locks the two together. This is important when you're snow wheeling, because now instead of running one of these tires under power, both are run under power. Being selectable is important too. And being selectable is important because when you, there are situations where you just want the front pulling or just want the back pushing. For example, if you're on a side hill and you have your rear locker locked in, you tend to, the back of the rig tends to drop down, and usually at the bottom of side hills when you're snow wheeling, you'll find objects like trees.
Yes.
So if you run just the front locker to pull yourself forward and run the back open, the back tends not to slip down, but the front will pull you forward and pull you past that stuff. And it's a technique, but people say, well, I'll just use a Detroit locker because that locks it up, right?
It's always locked. Or
It's always
a
locked.
A Lincoln locker.
Spool, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So selectable lockers in snow are king.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of people don't realize that if you're going on a hairpin turn that's also increasing elevation, as soon as that inside tire turns more than the outside tire, you lose traction. That causes your rear end to just slide down
Fall in the
with
hole.
gravity.
Yep.
And so being able to turn that off so that they do have different rates of rotation so you can make that turn without losing traction or slipping a tire, very, very useful.
Super important.
So lockers are awesome in a vehicle for if you're going to be up here snow wheeling out on the Rubicon. What about the vehicle itself though?
So you talked a little earlier about contact patch, and we talked about PSI of, you used the term,
Ground pressure.
PSI of ground pressure.
Okay.
So PSI of ground, the less your PSI of ground pressure, the less you're going to drop into the snow. If you have a heavy vehicle, you're increasing your PSI of ground pressure, and you're negating the impact of having that big patch because you're pushing down harder on the snow. So a big heavy vehicle doesn't work as well in the snow as a lightweight vehicle. Cut out fenders, lighter equipment, anything you can do to lighten it up helps. Soft top as opposed to hard top, soft doors as opposed to hard doors. When we talk about front and rear axles, everybody wants Dana 60s and Dana 70s. Oh no, I want a Dana 80. I want a Spider Trax because it weighs 350 pounds.
Yep. Yeah, low weight. Also, one thing to think about, talking about, 14 bolts, 10.5 Sterlings, Dana 80s, they have a massive
Pumpkin.
center section and pumpkin on them.
Yes.
What does that do in the snow?
That is an anchor.
It's a big anchor, yeah.
Yeah, that's called the third wheel, and runs right down the center of your path, and you're having to drag snow with it the whole time you're wheeling. If you use a aftermarket differential system, they're specifically designed to have higher ground clearance and less likely to drag in the snow. So the same advantage that you have in the rocks is an advantage in the snow too.
Very cool. So is that where portals come in play too? So everybody needs portals?
Yeah, everybody needs portals at $20,000 a corner.
Right.
I'd love to have a set of portals.
Yeah, especially for snow wheeling because you get so much more ground clearance out of them. You get more gearing, but it just keeps everything up out of the snow.
Yep.
And helps you continue having traction, keeps those anchors out of the snow.
Yep.
Very cool, man. Nice rig. How much does your rig weigh?
It weighs 4,200 pounds wet.
Wet, trail loaded? Awesome. That's not bad at all. I think me and my 4Runner, I'm right around 5,000 pounds.
That's actually really good for a hardtop vehicle.
I try, but hey,
Yeah.
I also carry a lot of stuff with me. We'll see.
And I do too.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Anything else about vehicles? Things that we can do to a vehicle to make it more successful in the snow?
So the only other thing I want to talk about vehicles is these guys right here, seats.
Seats? Okay.
Seat time in the snow is super important.
Yeah.
Don't decide you're going to tackle Rubicon in a big snowstorm for your first snow wheeling adventure.
No.
You might want to you might want to go try a trail that's flatter, has less grade, and maybe lower in elevation, has an easy exit point, has easy access to help before you decide to tackle this.
Yeah.
So seat time is super important. You gain skills with seat time. When do you need to use horsepower and wheel speed?
Yeah.
When is it more important to use a super low gear and crawl up something in snow? And is there an ideal RPM for this particular type of snow? All that stuff comes with seat time and experience, and I learn something every time I come out.
100%. I think a really great point you touched on is the type of snow, because everyone's like, it's snow, right?
Oh yeah, snow, it's all the same.
It's all the same. No, there's 100% different types of snow, and those different types of snow change throughout the day too.
As the day goes on,
I'm
or
saying that
sometimes in the night.
Yeah, 100%. As the day goes on, we're having a gorgeous day here today, out here filming out near the Rubicon, and all the snow around us is going to get slushy by the mid-afternoon.
So when we're wheeling, right now, we were just over in the snow walking around talking about it. Right now, this is an example of seat time. Right now, when we walk into the snow, we're like, wow, this is going to have great traction. It's got a nice 6-inch crust on the top, and it's nice and hard. By 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon, you'll be able to tell the difference driving when you go from the shade to the sun.
Yep.
You'll bog down in the sun.
Yep.
I've had days when I've been miserable trying to make forward progress, and finally just camped and got up the next morning when it was cold and just driven like nothing.
Yep. Or at nighttime, just hey, take it easy the rest of the day,
Hang
take
out.
a nap, get up at midnight, and you have
perfect
traction all night long.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff, and you only gain that with seat time.
You only gain that knowledge with seat time.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool. That's a really good points, really good stuff. If you guys have more information, more ideas about vehicles, ways to make vehicles more successful in the snow, drop them down in the comments below. We love seeing all the ideas, the different information out there. The more information we can get out there, the more everybody gets educated, the more everyone can come up here and enjoy the Rubicon safely during winter time. Really cool stuff, John. Thanks for this video. I'm Tyler.
I'm John.
And stay safe out there, guys, and enjoy the wheeling.